Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Expendable Show. Sorry about the glitch there. My computer was acting completely idiotic, kind of like the Democrats. It must be a Democrat computer. But if you like my show, like, subscribe, and ding the bell. So let's get right into it. Doge. Let's talk about the Doge money. So they updated their site. We're up to 155 billion on the Doge.gov site, which is $962.73 per taxpayer. On the debt clock, Doge is clocking at $323 billion, which comes out to $2,880 per taxpayer. So everything's going up. He's finding more stuff. We're not seeing them advertise it as much. So I'm wondering if they're kind of dialing back the publicity of the Doge findings because of all of the kickback that they get from the left, who we'll talk about that in a minute. Democrat approval rating still at 21%, completely worthless. We'll talk about that later too. Trump's approval rating, so he was at 46.7% last week. He's up 0.2%, so he's at 46.9%. So there's Trump's gonna take effect from the tariff stuff, but he's not really losing ground like I think they thought he would. It's just like when going up into the presidential race, all the liberals thought, well, if we keep throwing all this bad stuff out here, America will hate Donald Trump. But he just kept getting stronger. Every time they do something, he'd gain ground. So I think you're seeing that same effect. Like we're seeing the next round of liberal games getting thrown at Donald Trump. And it's not getting the effect that they want. And I think they're getting frustrated. You know, you're seeing more radical things. Every time he beats them, it gets more radical. So let's talk about eggs. 2014, they're $4.15 a dozen. Now the average for the nation is $3.11. Gas average 2024, $3.30 a gallon. Now we're at $3.17 a gallon. Gas prices keep going down. This morning, it was $2.57 in my little town in Georgia, just south of Atlanta. So we're going to see those probably continually drop. Mortgage rates. So the mortgage rates are confusing me because we're seeing the stock market adjust, but we're not seeing the mortgage rates adjust. And I think that's Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve being a bullhead. He's not giving Trump what he wants, and he knows that, you know, Trump gets a big win if the mortgage rates drop. We're not seeing it. We're sitting at 6.95 right now, according to Zillow's average, which it's hard to gauge. I don't think any of you, for those of you who look stuff up, it's hard to gauge that stuff in because everybody has their own mortgage percentage. So I have to kind of be consistent and just use the same one every time. So I always use Zillow because there's a lot of people out there that use Zillow for stuff. So I tend to use theirs instead of going by, you know, Wells Fargo or Rocket Mortgage or whoever is out there. So let's see, what did the Dow close at today? So the Dow took a hit today, probably due to the negotiations with China. They're still reacting to that. I think Trump upped his tariff to like 200 and some percent. So yeah, there's still that going on. And there's just a lot of stuff going on that's affecting the market. So we're kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. You know, Trump he gave the pause across the board. Right. So Collins in there. So Collins said Harvard didn't give Trump what he wanted, and it didn't work out for Harvard. It didn't. Harvard ended up losing $2 billion on that whole debacle dispute with Trump. And I was going to talk about that later, but I'll just cover it now. But basically, Harvard had to clean up their act. They had to dial back their DEI. They had to clean up their anti-Semitic protesting that was going on there, and they just refused to do it. A lot of people don't know this, but Harvard was sued twice for anti-Semitic behavior for enabling it and not protecting the students there. And they settled out of court on both of those. So I know in the legal standing, it's not a win or a loss for Harvard, but if you got to settle out of court, that's a loss. You don't want it to go to trial because facts are going to come out and it's going to look bad. It's just like taking a deal in the criminal world. If you take a deal, you're just taking the best deal because you know you're going to get screwed later. So that's kind of how it works. And we'll see if Harvard eventually does dial it back. Although they have the largest endowment in all out of all the colleges and universities in the United States, like 57 billion, I think I heard. So they've got money. I don't understand why we're giving them any money to begin with. Hey, there's Shauna. But if we're giving them $2 billion and they got 57 billion in their endowment, can't we give that money to another university that needs it? That's just my opinion. I don't think Harvard needed it at all. I don't think Harvard should be funding. We shouldn't be funding Harvard at all unless they were in some kind of financial trouble, which they're not. It's like 80 grand a year for each kid to go there. I think they got money. And those buildings they've got there, most of them have been there since the beginning of time, other than the new techie buildings they've got there. So I think Harvard's doing just fine. Harvard just doesn't impress me anyway. I think if I had somebody walk into my office and say, "Hey, I have a prestigious Harvard grad. I graduated with honors." So I'd be like, "So you're honorably the biggest moron in the room then." That's kind of how I would look at it. Like that Harvard degree used to be a big deal. And I remember my youngest son, he had an offer from Harvard. He's very, very intelligent. And I remember I was like, well, you'd be stupid to not take that. And I'm glad he didn't, because he would turn into he'd probably be out there protesting with all them other idiots. So, he went to a smaller school because he wanted to run cross country, or indoor track. So luckily he didn't take it, but I mean, it would have probably opened up a lot of doors for him, honestly. But Harvard just doesn't carry the weight that it used to. we didn't call it Paulding University. We called it Haviland Technical College. Yeah. So they could probably use a few bucks. If Paulding University, a lot of people don't know this, but Bowling Green State University, Bowling Green, Ohio, was not its first destination. Van Wert, Ohio was. They wanted to put Bowling Green State University in Van Wert, Ohio. But Van Wert is obsessed with having control over their people with all this old corrupt money they got there, that they were afraid that the university would dig into their power structure. So they declined it. That's just an old theory that I've heard over a long period of time. But Bowling Green did want to go to Van Wert, Ohio. It should have been Van Wert State University. A lot of people don't know that. It's an interesting fact about Van Wert. They like to sabotage. That town likes to sabotage like big things coming in. They sabotage. They're supposed to get this big giant Honda plant that would have made the whole county more money, and they did everything they could to get Honda to not want to go there. They end up going over into the Indiana side and going to some little town in Indiana that's thriving now. So anyway, that's my hometown, Van Wert, Ohio, for those of you who don't know. And so I know all their little dirty little secrets. One day I'm going to put it all in a book and publish it, and see what kind of response I get out of that. So Cobb County, we had some news here yesterday in Georgia. For those of you who don't know, Cobb County is on the north side of Atlanta, It's a lot of suburb areas. It's a really nice area. I like going up to Cobb County. I know Shauna doesn't. She does. She has this thing against Cobb County, but I like Cobb County. It's nice up there. So Marjorie Taylor Greene held a town hall up there, and she was trying to do it without having a bunch of drama. So she had everybody register, and everybody was going to have to go through all these checks, to make sure that nobody was like a terrorist or anything crazy like that. And but she didn't decline people. So there were some protesters that had gone through the procedure to get in, and they got in. Well, some people got arrested. Some of the liberals that went there, they went there just to disrupt her town hall. And so they redistrict Marjorie Taylor Greene's district. So she used to not cover Cobb County, which would be like Ackworth, Georgia, and like those little areas north of Georgia, like right off of I-75. But now they redrew her district, so now she has that little northern tip of Cobb County in her district. So she was just trying to do a town hall so she can meet and greet that part of her district, which is what a good politician would do. So I think it was a good idea, even though Thune and Johnson, which is Johnson's the Speaker of the House, and Thune is the majority leader of the Senate. They neither one of them want Congress to do town halls, because the liberals have been orchestrating to attend to like hire people to attend them to be disruptive. So that's what happened here. They were part of that disruption. Marjorie Taylor Greene had a lot of security, a lot of Cobb County police officers. They had the pre-registration ID checks. Then she kept the location private until the registration was confirmed with people. There was protests, demonstrators. Somebody got tased. One of these guys got tased. Which it just depends on what news you watch. If you watch the news like CNN, it'll say black man gets tased at Marjorie Taylor Greene event, trying to make it look like it was a racist thing. But if you watch the video, the guy was fighting with the cops, and then they tased him. So, trick no good. There's video evidence. So after all the disruptions, Marjorie Taylor Greene proceeded with the town hall. She wanted to address the questions and talk about reducing political hostility and things like that. Trying to just let people know what she's all about in that new part of her district. So 3 people got arrested. Andrew Russell Nelms of Atlanta. He was 40 years old. He got arrested for battery on a law enforcement officer and obstruction. Johnny Keith Williams of Dallas, Georgia. He was charged with the same offenses as Andrew Russell Nelms. Then there was Kiana Name Davis from Dallas, Georgia. He was charged with violating a city ordinance for vulgar language. You're not allowed to say vulgar things in Ackworth. City ordinance. So you can get arrested for that, for saying bad words. But either way, if you show up to a town hall, you can at least act normal. Yep, there you go. Shauna's trash in Cobb County already. The area's trash. I mean, maybe you just don't fit in up there, Shauna. You leave my little areas alone. Oh, my dad just told me, Colin, that Harvard could lose their tax exempt status. Trump is looking at that. So that would be a big deal. That will hurt Harvard right there if they lose their tax exempt, because then game over. They got to pay taxes. Villarica's not up there. Shauna, Villarica's on the west side. And then, so town hall. So another town hall, Maryland Democrat Glenn Ivey had a town hall. So I just stumbled upon this on YouTube, and his constituency in Maryland let him have it. So it was bad. Like it was to the point where he had to. Colin said we got to teach him a fucking lesson. Yeah, they need to learn. I thought they was real smart and they didn't need lessons, but apparently they need some lessons. But the constituents in Glenn Ivey's district claim that the left isn't doing enough to fight Trump policies, and they claim that they should be more disruptive and more destructive. There was a lady that was going off on him. She would not let this guy talk. He had said the wrong thing, and she just stood up and went off. And if go find it on YouTube, Glenn Ivey Town Hall. They light him up. There's several people in there that just let him have it. But the main thing that I want to take away from this as I look at this, so you go back to Marjorie Taylor Greene. She had this town hall. It was real calm. It was real cool until the liberals disrupted it. You have this town hall with Glenn Ivey, who's a liberal. They disrupted that. So what they've done is they've used the media to hype up their constituents. Now they've created so much anger and fear and whatnot that they are going to lose control of their constituency, which is what you're seeing. You do see them go after their own Democrat candidates. They will do that because they've been prepped up that Trump's been committing all these crimes and he's violating the Constitution. And he's doing this and he's a Nazi and a fascist and this and that, and he's racist. They've been fed this for years now. And so they've built that anger up so much, and now they're seeing that, hey, you guys are our leaders. You should be doing something about it. And the left has abandoned, in their eyes, the congressional representatives have abandoned their constituents and are leaving Trump to destroy the Constitution. These people believe this because the media has fed them this, and so has their Congress people. So it's because they've created this monster that I'm not sure that they can control anymore. I think that these guys will turn on them. And one point that this guy made, he said, "Look, if these Democrats," he was yelling this at Glenn Ivey. He said, "Look, if you guys aren't going to get on our page and do what we ask you to do, we're going to primary you all out." And this guy was like, didn't know this Glenn Ivey. He was like, I don't know what to say. I've never heard of the dude until I saw the video. So, he's a very, very intellectual type of person, but he did not do well in confrontation. I'll tell you that. They was eating his lunch. And right, this leads into my next segment, Colin. Leave it to the left to want to be destructive. So as I'm compiling all this of what the left is about, okay, because I'm not hearing them talk about no policies. They're not talking about, hey, we should try this or we should try this. Instead, I found here's the things that the left is really doing. They're supporting. These are the things the left supports. They support Hamas. They support Tren de Aragua. They support MS-13. They support illegal immigration. They support disrupting town halls. They support murderers. They support men and women's sports. They support wasteful spending, and they support arson. They stood up for every one of these things in like at least the last week and going beyond. The left has lost their mind. And for anybody on the left to come to me and say, well, you guys are so terrible, but we are not sticking up for the top 3 terrorist groups according to the United States right now. We're not trying to rescue every illegal immigrant. We're not standing up for murderers. We're not going and disrupting the town halls. We're not catching Teslas on fire. We're not allowing our congressmen to have free reign at the taxpayers' funding. And we definitely aren't letting men play in women's sports. So when you really look at the moral compass here And the left wants to point the finger that Donald Trump is the most morally incompetent person in the world. They need to look in the mirror, because what we have going on the left is nothing but destruction, nothing but hate filled, nothing like, how do you support Hamas? I get it. I get it. There's a lot of anti-Israel people out there. That's fine. You can be anti-Israel. You can say, I don't like Israel. They're just as bad as Hamas. They're just as bad as Palestine. They're just as bad as Iran. I don't care. You have the right to have that opinion. Do I agree with you? No. But are you allowed to have that opinion? Yes. Now, but you can't have people coming in this country on a U.S. visa. Yes, we have freedom of speech here, but you also don't have freedom to support terrorist organizations. That's where we draw the line. That's where you go draw the line between expressing your freedom of speech to supporting a terrorist unit. And if you're going on a college campus and you're spreading terrorist rhetoric, which means you're trying to recruit more people to help you support terrorist rhetoric, now you're expanding into becoming part of the terrorist organization. Now, I'll guarantee you, just like what we find from time to time when people go look into Ilhan Omar and she starts to send money over to, her little country back home in Africa, to her little terrorist organizations back there. Are these college kids sending money? Should we be auditing them? If you're going out in there and you're going to support Hamas, who is constantly trying to get donations from people, what's your bank account doing? Is it transferring funds over to the next Osama bin Laden? I don't know, but if you're going to sit there and you're going to say, Hamas is a great humanitarian group and everybody just picks on them, then you're going to subject yourself to a criminal inquiry. Right, Colin? I haven't seen a Trump supporter burn anything down yet. I'm not saying they wouldn't, but I haven't seen it. And we know that if they did, it'd be all over the news. MAGA burns down the country. That's what the headline would be. And all it would be is they caught a picture of a MAGA person burning their trash out back. That's how the media will spin that. You see him out there trying to start his trash on fire in a burn barrel. MAGA burns down the country. We told you. That's how they'll do it. It's ridiculous. So this is what we have. Now, they're trying to figure out how to paint some of these illegal immigrants as good people. But let me explain something to you. I spent a very long time in my life studying organized crime. Probably at one point, I was probably the foremost expert in Northwest Ohio in the Italian mafia. I knew everything about them. However, these Hispanic gangs like MS-13, Tren de Aragua, the Latin Kings, a lot of these have what we call bylaws, and the black gangs have them too, like the Bloods and the Crips and the GDs and the the Vice Lords and many of these other gangs that are out there. The Pyrus, they have them too. So what we have is they have bylaws. There's things that you have to do to prove your loyalty to the gang. Now, many of them, you basically have to commit a heinous act to show your loyalty to the gang. Plus, they'll use that as leverage on you. Sometimes it involves felonious assaults. Sometimes it'll involve assaulting a cop. Sometimes it'll involve murder. Sometimes it involves rape. Sometimes it involves, human trafficking. Sometimes it involves selling drugs. You have to do something heinous and a major felony to prove your worth to the gang so they know they can trust you. If you're willing to do that, you're willing to do anything for the gang. Now, MS-13 specifically is notorious for trafficking humans and drugs, murder, rape, and witness intimidation. Tren de Aragua pretty much follows that same category. So when we're looking at actually, Tren de Aragua was politically like basically contracted by Venezuela's president Nicolas Maduro to assassinate one of his generals that was kind of pushing back against Maduro. So these guys, Tren de Aragua is not a slouch gang. MS-13 is not a slouch gang. These guys are very organized. They know what they're doing. They all have a very long history of violence and doing very heinous things. So what they're trying to do is, there's a debate about this Abrigo Garcia from Maryland, or he's from El Salvador, but living in the United States illegally. So he's like, well, he's been a law-abiding citizen for 10 years and he's got a wife and kids and blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? So did every other bad person in the world, if you're not bad if you have a wife and kids. That doesn't understand. Richard Kuklinski, which was the Iceman, the most notorious assassin for the Italian mafia in New York. He had a wife and like 3 kids at home. His family thought he was a traveling salesman, but then they've come to find out he had murdered 200 people that they know of, and he was putting dead bodies in a false bottom in his deep freezer out in his garage to change the time of death. So you can't tell me that having a wife and kids like exempts you from being bad. It's been proven wrong over and over and over again. So we have this Abrigo Garcia, and he's already in El Salvador's worst prison. There. Now, there's some conflicting information about that he was accidentally nabbed up and they didn't really have their facts straight with him. But he did already have an order to deport from 2019. Now, the left is trying to say, oh, that was no good. That's no good. It is good. He was ordered to be deported. It didn't get done. So now he's still here. And the law enforcement at that time had already deemed that he was MS-13. So now when we go look at El Salvador's president, Bukele, he has also confirmed that Garcia is MS-13. And he is saying, I'm not giving him back. So he's not, look, what do they call him? Senator Van Halen from Maryland. He went down there today. Well, I'm gonna stay down there and keep fighting until I bring him back. No. I mean, you can stand down there, but you're in another country. You're not going to be able to tell El Salvador's president, who's a very, very pro-Trump president, that, hey, let that guy out. I'm going to take him home. That's not going to happen. It's not happening. Sorry. Bukele, he's not going to let your dude out. He's there. Because in his country, he rounds up gang members and they don't have a constitution down there. It's a different world down there. He just rounds up, he went through and he swept the whole country and rounded up all the MS-13 gang members and just threw them in prison. No due process. There you go. I wanted to clean up my streets, so I got all the shitheads out of there. And that's what he did. So here's a statement that Secretary Kristi Noem from Homeland Security put out there. This was just one of those examples of an individual that is an MS-13 gang member, multiple charges and encounters with the individuals here. So this dude does nothing but hang out with MS-13 gang members, even though he's like, I'm not an MS. Bro, if you was a Crip, are you going to walk up to the cops and go, yeah, man, I'm a Crip? You're not going to do that. You're going to be like, man, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't kick it with none of these dudes, but they already know because they already got all the intel on you. Look, they know who's who. So my dad just told me, and I already knew this, but I forgot to put it in my notes. So this guy's he's abused his wife twice. He's been arrested for domestic violence on his wife twice. And she would end up not going to court, so they would drop the charges. So that's what is MS-13 good at? Witness intimidation. So look, the state can pick those up, but it makes it hard without the witness. So yeah, that's a whole other thing in itself. But going on, so Kristi Noem said he's got trafficking in his background. He was found with other MS-13 gang members. He's a very dangerous person. What the liberal left and fake news are doing to turn him into a media darling is sickening. And that's what they're doing. They're trying to make this guy look like he's a super role model for the country. Regardless, for one, he's guilty of illegal immigration. That's one. And he's a known gang associate. That is number two. I mean, and he's already been ordered to be deported 5-6 years ago. So that's strike three. Like, they have no leg to stand on with this. So White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, he made some statements as well. He said the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful and its main components were unlawful and reversed it 9-0 unanimously. Even the Democrat justices said it was unlawful. Stating clearly that neither the Secretary of State or President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in barbaric activities in the world. And I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away. So there's Stephen Miller. He's the guy. If you don't know anything about Stephen Miller, this guy holds nothing back. He lays it all out on the table. He keeps it 100 all the time. I love watching him, especially when he goes on like CNN, because he eats them up. He tears them apart every time. It's awesome. But he's absolutely right. The Supreme Court has said that the dude's from El Salvador. We can't intervene in this anymore. The guy's not supposed to be here. He got deported. We're not going to make you bring him back. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin reaffirmed that this MS-13 terrorist gang member is where he belongs, in an El Salvador Supermax prison, the worst one in El Salvador. She went on to say, I think this illegal alien is exactly where he belongs, home in El Salvador. He was in our country illegally. He's from El Salvador, born in El Salvador, and the media forgot to mention he's an MS-13 gang member. The media would love for you to believe that this is a media darling, that he's just a Maryland father. Osama bin Laden, he was a father, and yet he was not a good guy. They actually are both terrorists. He should be in this El Salvador prison, a prison for terrorists, and I hope he will remain there. So there you go. To me, the Supreme Court's already ruled on it. Even the liberal justices ruled on it. Everybody's done their homework on this guy. This guy's MS-13. He's been involved in trafficking. He's been involved in 2 domestic violences. We can't have people like this here. And if he would have came across legally and obtained the legal documentations, we'd probably be dealing with him a little bit different. He'd probably be, sitting in jail, or they'd be working on revoking his visa. There would be a whole other different ordeal for this. But instead, he came here illegally. However he got in, probably walked across the border when Joe Biden or Obama or whoever, and now he's deported, and they want to cry about it. But whatever. Okay, moving on. So other news. Bernie's out there making it burn. Him and AOC are running around doing all these fight the oligarchy like events. of course, with paid protesters and paid attendees like they do, like how Kamala Harris. The problem is they made her think she was popular. They tricked their own candidate. They knew they were paying people to go, but then Kamala was like, "Wow, I really have a lot of fans. I'm doing really good in this presidential race." And then it came out she got her ass kicked, and then she's like, "I don't know why." Well, they even tricked you. You thought you were doing something, but you weren't. Same thing here. Bernie Sanders, AOC, drawing like 10, 11, 12,000 people to their little events and all over the place, mainly going to heavy liberal areas where there is going to be a gathering. I find it funny that they're doing this whole stop the oligarchy, because that's what we had before. We've had a long bloodline of Bushes. We've had the bloodline of the Clintons. We've had the bloodline of Obama's bloodline, which is he's partly related to the Bushes. So you've got all these bloodlines of these old European oligarchies, and they go back to royalty. They're all related to the royalty of Europe, and they want to go out there and say stop the oligarchy. Where were you saying stop the oligarchy when all these other oligarchs were in office? The Clintons are their own oligarchy. The Bushes is a long line of oligarchs. But you guys didn't care about them. Obama, same thing. He's developed his own way of oligarchy. The fact is, you're not going to be able to create a society in any country without some kind of oligarchy happening. It's just how it is. When you're president, you're going to have your own people, right? So your own people are going to be in your cabinet. They may be running for other offices. You could be prepping the next one to take your place as president when you're done. You have your own oligarchy. That's how it works. So what they're trying to do, Bernie Sanders and AOC, they're trying to trick you into saying, let's get rid of the oligarchy, which means get rid of Trump so we can install our own oligarchy of socialist. This is the old triple OG, old school socialist Bernie Sanders trying to carry his rising star, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, right into the White House through their own socialist Marxist oligarchy. It's the same thing. They just want to do it the socialist way. So that's dumb. It's dumb that they think we're dumb. They really overplay their cards all the time. Like, how are you going to replace one oligarchy with another oligarchy? And then come out and say, stop the oligarchy. Come on. You guys are tripping. And you're not tricking me. I know what you're doing. Most MAGA people and conservatives know what you're doing. Yeah, I agree. So Colin's going to give us a Spanish lesson. I'm going to get caught up in the chats real quick. For those of you who don't habla español, El Salvador is Spanish for the Salvador. That is true, Colin. That is very true. You should have been a Spanish teacher. And then Colin also said, I can't believe Bernie Sanders is still alive. I know. He still goes up there. His hair is always a mess. He looks like a mad scientist. He's like the Jewish Krusty the Clown. I don't understand that guy. Bernie Sanders, I don't understand him. He's really into himself. It was funny because they've continually asked him, because he's always like, well, the rich need to pay their fair share. And he was on Fox. I think it was with like Brett Baer. It was like a town hall kind of thing. I think he was running for president at the time. And they were like, well, are you going to give your fair share? Like, are you going to pay the taxes? He's like, wait, they should be paying 56% in taxes. They're like, well, are you going to pay your 56%? You can volunteer right now if you don't like capitalism and you want it to be a socialist system. And he was like, oh, whoa, you're the one who makes more money than he was trying to deflect. Like, you make more money than me. I think it was like Martha McCallum, and she was like, I'm not the one advocating for socialism. I want to keep my money. I don't want the rich to pay 56%. Oh yeah, that's a ringer, Colin. Bernie Sanders looks like Rick from Rick and Morty. You nailed it. You nailed it on that one. So that's a big one. My dad just referred everything I talked about to Skull and Bones, which is a big deal. You know, they have all their little, these rich people got all their little secret societies everywhere. Then they go out to Bohemian Grove and they all get naked together and it turns into a big gay fest. So the last thing I'm going to talk about today, we've got some good news. The Federal Housing and Finance Agency has submitted a referral of charges to the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, for Letitia James. And she is probably going to get indicted for mortgage fraud. So she was fudging the numbers so she would get into more favorable loans, because she probably makes too much money to get into some of the other loans. But she had to say, well, to qualify the one property in Virginia, I think it was like a multi-unit property. You had to have 4 or less to get this better loan. Well, the property had 5 units. So she fudged the numbers and said, oh, there's only 4. So she'd get in there. So she fraudulently did that application. And then there's like some tax and some other issues with some of her other properties where she got into some better loans. Her primary residence in Virginia was that she claimed, and she was married to her dad in one of the other loan applications. So there's a lot of fraud there. And I'm pretty sure that's going to be a open and shut case for Pam Bondi. I'm going to give her a few days to look it over, and I would expect she's going to probably submit that to a federal grand jury. And you're probably going to see an indictment come out probably in the next month on Letitia James. She has made a statement and says, I'm not going to be bullied by anybody. Well, you're not being bullied. You committed a crime. Now you're going to go to jail. So you're going to need that spirit when you get into prison. Don't let anybody bully you, Letitia. Remember when you said, nobody's above the law, not even the president, and not even the New York Attorney General. I hope they put you in a New York prison. That would be gold. A New York federal prison with people that you have prosecuted. That would be gold. But we know that won't happen. You're going to go to one of those country club ones where Martha Stewart went, and you're going to play 9 holes of golf every day for 4 years. And then you're going to get out and you're going to be completely reformed and have your own cooking show. But you're never going to practice law ever again. That'll be the end of you. So there we go. So like I said, Letitia James is in big trouble. She's probably just kind of just playing it neutral until she finds out if she's getting indicted or not. I would be willing to bet that if the Federal Housing Finance Agency is submitting something to the DOJ, they're pretty certain that it's fraud. You know, it's pretty easy to find it. You just go look at the property, look at the contract, make sure Letitia James' signature's on it, that she said that all this is, because they make you, they notify you like in little sections and like credit apps, like you're acknowledging that all this information is true to the best of your knowledge. And she lied, and that's a crime. Accountability. I love this. I can't wait to see that perp walk. That's going to be gold. I may just put it on loop and just watch it over and over and over again, like a whole entire weekend. And another last piece of big news. The Ohio State University Buckeyes visited President Trump at the White House, and it was pretty cool. He called out Jeremiah Smith as being a big dog. I thought that was cool. The Buckeyes look pretty well represented. They look smooth, man. They are all in their suits, and they look good. JD Vance did drop the national championship trophy, or at least the base of it. He dropped it on the ground, which I'll forgive him. I'd be nervous too if I was touching the national championship trophy. But it was overall a good day. It's nice to see these sports teams going to the White House and at least accepting the invitation, whether they like Donald Trump or not. I would be willing to bet. Well, I have a source that knows Travion Henderson, and I talk to her all the time about it. And she said, that Travion's a very, very religious young man, and he's very humble. So it wouldn't surprise me that he was in support of that. And then we know that Jack Sawyer, he used to do the Trump shuffle. So which the Bosas do too. Ohio's a big Trump state, so it don't surprise me that there's a lot of Trump supporters there. There's probably some that don't like him. But anyway, Ohio State national champions visiting the president. Looked like a good time. It looks like some of the players went and toured some of the historical sites of Washington, D.C., which is always nice. I've been there. It's beautiful. There's stuff, you'll never forget. But that's our show for the day. And be safe and, watch out for crazy people. These liberal lunatics are everywhere. And always stay strapped when you're in the hood. I'm out. Peace.